All right, now back to our top story this morning. And the chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Wafula Chebukati, today leads his team in presenting the commission's views on the proposed amendments to the electoral laws. Now, Chebukati leads his team before the William Cheptumo-led committee after he said that the commission needed no new law to deliver a credible election. The bill seeks to streamline IEBC's operations in case the chairperson quits or cannot exercise their mandate. It also sets the quorum for the commission at 3. The committee will also hear views from political parties. The committee is expected to complete its sittings today and prepare a report for adoption in the House next week. Let me now bring in my colleague Patrick Amimo joining us from County Hall. He has been following up on this story since it started. Patrick, let's talk about the views, first of all, that were presented by Kenyans yesterday. We saw quite a number of interesting submissions that were made by Kenyans. And even today, we're looking at the IEBC coming out to also put their views across. And they've been on record saying that they do not really need any new law for them to hold a credible election. Are we expecting anything different from that?
Thank you. We expect this particular meeting to start anytime from 9:30 thereabouts. The IEBC, as indicated, will be presenting their views with regard to these proposed amendments on the Election Laws and the Election Offences Act. These particular provisions, some of them are touching on the IEBC itself, especially the composition of that particular commission. And we've seen that there's a proposal to have the chairperson of that committee not necessarily to be a lawyer, to be a lawyer and or a person qualified to hold a position as the judge of the Supreme Court. That's a provision that is put there, and to ensure that in case of that, to have at least the vice chairperson and or any other member of the commission take up that role. Ideally, according to the IEBC Act, the chairperson is the national returning officer for the presidential election. But we've seen this particular amendment that have been proposed by the Jubilee side of government is that they want, they say, in case the chairperson is fatigued and or maybe is sick, then the vice chairperson can take over. And in the absence of the vice chairperson, then any other member of the commission can take over this particular provision. It is something that people have been looking at the qualifications, and there is a mixed opinion about this particular qualification for the IEBC chairperson, because we know in the past recruitment for the chairperson has been separate from those of members of the commission, because ideally in the past all members who have been invited for this particular position of the chairperson have been lawyers, at least of 15 years experience, having worked as advocates in the High Court. And their interviews are done separately. But now with these particular provisions, it means that these particular qualifications will be watered down, and any person without that legal knowledge can now act as chairperson of the commission. And we've seen there are suggestions. Some said that it's not. They feel that lawyers should not take up this particular position. It will be open for other disciplines. We've seen yesterday, we saw someone argue that he wanted a statistician take over the role of the chairperson, because due to that, the mathematics that came on when it came to the tallying of those figures, they felt that maybe some of those problems emanated because people were not equipped in statistics and mathematics. So that was the view of one of the contributors in this particular public hearings yesterday. We also saw some member of the public suggest that we need the committee missed out on amendments to protect political party agents, because these are very, very important personnel when it comes to ensuring that the election process is free, fair, and transparent, because they represent various stakeholders in the election process. And particular party agents have not been focus has not been put on party agents, because we know in the past agents have said that either they've been evicted from polling stations, and or some don't take their agents to areas that are perceived to be enjoying massive support from their rival parties, and that maybe opens a room for malpractices and illegalities to go on at that particular process, because there's no other rival party or agent to monitor what the presiding officers, the clerks, and returning officers are doing at that particular level. So there was that at least that particular suggestion that party agents should be considered in this particular law, so that they are roped in to ensure that this process is free, fair, and transparent. The other issue is also to do with the punishment punishment of those officers, poll officials who don't maybe append their signatures or issue false documents. So there was a suggestion in the amendment is that they should be jailed. They should serve a jail term of 5 years without an option of a fine. And some were of the view that that particular provision punishment should be enhanced, saying that also IBC commissioners should be roped in, because it's not only the returning and all presiding officers who are responsible for these. Also, IBC commissioners should be also face similar punitive measures in order to ensure that this process is protected. There was also that idea to do with looking at the transmission of whether that electronic vis-a-vis manual transmission of results. It is the provisions, the proposal by the amendments of this particular committee that the manual transmission should take precedence vis-a-vis that electronic. But we saw the KEPSA come on board and say that these particular systems should complement each other, and especially the transmission. And this particular provision came on board because of the fears that there were ghost voters who could turn out and participate in the poll, and so encourage ballot stuffing. So it was meant to cure that anomaly of ballot stuffing, to ensure that voters are identified electronically, and those results are transmitted electronically also for faster processing, and also ensuring that those forms are scanned before they are transmitted electronically. The other provision also from KEPSA side was that this particular form should be standardized, because we had an issue from the majority ruling of the Supreme Court of Kenya that some of these forms were lacked watermarks, some did not they were not standardized, they did not have also those security features, and this was a concern in that we even saw some of those IBC lawyers could not explain why the discrepancy in the forms that were used to declare the presidential results. So it is a feeling of the KEPSA and those who came on board that these particular forms should be standardized, so that we don't have forms that have of dubious origin emanating to declare the presidential results. So that is some of the things that were also looked at in this particular session of public hearings. But we'll be keen to see how IBC will go about it, because they say that they don't need any more laws to run this particular repeat election. And we've also heard the envoys come on board. Recently they said that it's unnecessary to come up with these laws at this particular time. The EU observer mission has also said that these laws should not be done now, and at least they should be done almost a year before the election. And they are concerned that these particular amendments are causing unnecessary tension across the country. But we've seen the committee come out in defense and say that they are doing their legislative process, their legislative work, and should not be dictated to by either foreign powers out there. So the committee is continuing with this process. We know that though political parties have been invited, NASA maybe might not appear before this committee because they say it is illegally constituted. And the chairperson for the last 2 days has been at pains to explain that this committee, as it's constituted, despite the fact that it's only having members from the Jubilee side, and those are the affiliates from that particular party. It is an ad hoc committee because currently parliamentary committees are not constituted, and from both either the Jubilee side and the opposition side. So this is an ad hoc committee. It's provided for by the standing orders, but then it is facing challenges on its legality, and it's something that we've seen the chairperson try to defend, given that it's only composed of members from the Jubilee side of Parliament. So, and ideally the House should comprise of the majority and minority. So those are the things that we'll be seeing how it goes about as institutions come on board. We have IEBC, we have LSK, and we also expect the political parties liaison committee, and also maybe members of the clergy to come on board and present their views. Betty?
Right, Patrick, before I let you go, let's also talk about just looking forward after the end of the public hearings today. Maybe you could just break down what are we expecting in the coming days up until the 11th of October.
Yes, after this particular public hearings, members of the public were asked also to present memoranda. If you cannot appear here in person and present your views, then also the committee was receiving memoranda. And yesterday we saw the chairperson say that they had received 800 memoranda from individuals and institutions and different organizations. So those members will go through those particular memoranda, see what is contained in with regard to the proposed amendments, and also the views that are garnered from the different participants. So from here, after this particular meeting, members will take a retreat, go write their report, because the parliament that is expected to resume its sittings next week will expect the report tabled before both houses on October 10th, which is a Tuesday. So that particular time, we expect members now to start debating that report when it's tabled on the House on Tuesday next week, and it will only have until Thursday to do that particular debate. According to the word of the leader of national majority in the National Assembly, he is of the opinion that by 12th October, these particular laws should have been passed by both houses, and maybe on the 13th be assented to by the president and maybe apply in the October 26th election. So that is the way the Jubilee side has organized these particular amendments and the way it wants them to go about in informing the October 26th election. Betty?
All right. Patrick Amimo there reporting live and direct from the County Hall. Like he mentioned very clearly, we're expecting that the chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Wafula Chebukati, is going to be making his views and presenting the Commission's views with regard to those proposed changes to the electoral laws. We'll be crossing over there live and direct once that begins. But